Welcome to Storytime with John Tuttle, hosted by John Tuttle. Today we're going to be reading Daniel and the Ice Dragons by John Tuttle. Begin. The year is 2028. Earth has been saved from global warming by the ice dragons that emerged from the Mariana Trench, freezing and cooling down any part of the planet that might need some freezing and or some cooling. All they have to do in exchange for the ice dragon's magic is solve a daily riddle. That's not the only difference. After an experiment gone wrong, everyone has become Samoan, sacrificing culture and diversity for nationwide luau's. Obviously, racism is no longer a problem because, as previously hinted at, everyone is Samoan. But in an ironic twist of events, Samoan Girl Scout cookies no longer exist due to Girl Scouts going bankrupt for openly endorsing the KKK. Everything was perfect until one day, the earth began to burn. Daniel awoke from his bed in a sweat, his Stewie Griffin pajamas no longer feeling like the warm, loving inside of his father's womb, covered in hilarious quips. Rather, it felt like a sweat-lodged prison, suffocating him, covered in hilarious quips. Bazinga. This was odd. Daniel never got sweaty. No one did. The ice dragons were magic. They knew when someone was beginning to feel too hot and would quickly appear and cool the person down to the perfect temperature. They were so fast and hard to see, and there were so many of them. They served mankind loyally and kindly. All mankind had to do was solve a riddle. Every night at 12 a.m. Pacific, this time zone was chosen for seen as the most intellectually equipped to solve the new riddle. A team of the world's best wordsmiths, librarians, English teachers, English professors, riddle writers, crossword generator, AI, CEOs, Wheel of Fortune winners, vape pen salesmen, students at pretty good schools, maybe a little bit below them, but it allows them to be within a better percentile for the school, Instagram influencers, God, and anyone whose last name is Riddle was gathered to solve the new question. This team was so good that rarely did the riddle go unsolved for longer than 5 minutes. A 5 minutes that felt like you were stranded in the middle of a desert, hoping someone will find you, but knowing damn well they won't. The cruel reality beginning to set in that you're never leaving this place. Fuck, you might be dead and you're already in hell. That's what those 5 minutes felt like. But to be honest, nobody died. Global warming had increased the temperature naturally by a couple of degrees. It's just people weren't used to being hot anymore. Daniel woke up around 12:30 a.m. Pacific. He lived in Neo San Fran, the gayest city in the world. A peaceful community of gay Samoans and gay Samoan supporters. There was no gender here, so in a way it was also the least gay. In a way it was both the gayest and the least gay city. There was no hate. Police were deemed more of a liability than protectors, and they were shut down. Now the guilty party was chosen not through evidence or trials, but rather through games of apples to apples, the most creative one deemed innocent. Daniel was stunned to be hot. He had quickly begun to realize what this sweaty discomfort meant. The riddle has yet to be solved. Daniel looked outside his window, and rather than seeing the usual trash fire that the local gay Samoan cyborg jet skiing gang used as a meetup point, Daniel saw his neighbors confusedly looking around, talking to other neighbors, trying to figure out why everybody was so damn hot. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel's brain emergency vision went off. Computer chips had been implanted in everyone's brain, allowing the government to quickly send people special reports. This broadcast would turn off the citizens' eyes and force their brain to hallucinate the special broadcast occurring. The only downside to this was that while the broadcasts were playing, everyone would have a seizure.
We interrupt your brain to bring you a special broadcast,
said the news reporter, a 3D computer-generated teddy bear wearing a top hat who went by the name of Mr. Punishment.
The Ice Dragons have issued a riddle game to challenging. All crack squad of riddle solvers are stuck. We ask you, the new able American people, if you know the answer to this riddle, please alert the Riddle Solving Society immediately.
Daniel waited anxiously to hear the riddle while simultaneously trying not to swallow his tongue. Daniel was the best riddle solver in all of Gay Dwayne Johnson Middle School. His dream was to one day be a part of the crack squad of riddle solvers. He fantasized often of getting to crack riddles with Emma Riddle, the most beautiful riddle solver in the entire world. Daniel wanted to work with her and get fired over sexual harassment charges involving her that he would not regret. In fact, what he fantasized about doing was pretty much illegal, and the fact that all he has to do is find a new job is not much of a burden to him. Suddenly, Mr. Punishment began to speak again.
The riddle is, the more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I?
Daniel seizured frozenly. He had never heard a riddle so complex. The broadcast stopped and he stopped shaking as if the Holy Ghost had possessed him. Do you think a priest has ever accidentally exorcised the Holy Ghost? Daniel stood still in the center of his room. The more you take, the more you leave behind. The riddle echoed in his mind. He hit his Adderall vape pen, sending high amounts of amphetamine and nicotine and cotton candy flavoring straight into his bloodstream. He could now see 10 seconds into the future. He hit again, but even harder. 30 seconds. He hit again, even harder. 5 minutes. Daniel hit his vape pen so hard, you would have thought he had 8 lungs the same way a cow has 8 nipples, I think. Daniel could now see 5 hours into the future, and he saw himself with Emma Riddle. He also saw himself with the Master Ice Dragon, Bartholomew. Bartholomew was looking upon young Daniel and asked him,
"Be you the one who has the answers?"
Bartholomew spoke in an old English accent because he felt it was the best language to hide his lisp. In fact, his real name was Bartholomew, but he was never able to communicate that to anyone.
"You are nothing but a small prince. I respect your courage, but believe you have not the slightest clue as to what the riddle's answer shall be."
Daniel stood courageously and exclaimed to the icy dragon, "The answer to your riddle is..." And then just like that, Daniel couldn't see into the future anymore. He tried to hit his vape pen again, but it was all out of that fruity tooty juicy. Daniel stared at the ground, knowing he knows the answer. Just not what the answer is. Maybe he was thinking too much, and if he calmed down, he could think up the answer. Luckily, Daniel had just the thing. Inside his desk, he had a joint. A CBD joint. The strain of this weed was called Ultra